get into this 49er situation. Jay Glazer, Fox Sports Insider. I don't even know where to start, but we'll start with him. Take a listen to Jay Glazer.
There's buzz out there that Jimmy Garoppolo could have played in the NFC Championship game.
No, but so it's not that. Like, they were hoping kind of more for the Super Bowl, but even so, he wouldn't have been able to do everything. Kind of would have been able to do a little bit more than Purdy was able to do at the NFC Championship game. But they were hoping he was going to be able to be, and there was maybe the emergency third.
Well, Kyle's never had an emergency third.
Nope.
I mean, I thought the emergency third was Juszczyk.
Apparently not.
I guess not. But also that news coinciding, that's not really news, but Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's going to have surgery on February 22nd. And according to doctors, it's the 6-month one.
It's a repair, not a reconstruction.
Correct. So if that's the case, Evan and 49er fans, is it cut and dry? You know what? We're planning on Brock Purdy being the number one quarterback when training camp opens up next year.
Yes.
Is it that simple?
Yeah. Brock Purdy is QB1R right now, and the one would be an IR. So currently he's injured reserve. And when he returns, that R at the end of the QB1 gets removed, and he is slotted right back in as at the top of the hierarchy. That's the way that I see it.
I'd like to see a competition.
Well, I'm sure Kyle Shanahan will say it's a competition.
True. He probably will.
He'll publicly say, yeah, we're giving Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. And Trey Lance will have a leg up because he's going to be available for OTAs, and he's going to be healthy. And I know that he was speaking earlier today about his mentality heading into this offseason and not taking anything for granted. And I'm rooting for Trey Lance, but he also mentioned the fact that Brock Purdy showed it on the field. Brock Purdy has not lost a football game in which he started and finished. And I feel like it's going to be hard to immediately move off of a guy like that helped you so much this season in a time in which you thought the season might be over, to then just reorganize the hierarchy and say, you know what, our QB1 at the beginning of last year was Trey Lance, so we're going to start the year the exact same way. Brock Purdy, you got to come off the bench.
Although, I know he's had a good run, Brock Purdy, but then you're saying we're giving you the starting job for a half a year. I mean, for what you did for a half a year.
So what you're saying, Brock Purdy's heading into next year would be just the ultimate insurance policy?
I'm saying I don't know who will end up starting week one. Like, I actually don't, on a scale of, a letter grade, what would you give a letter grade right now? 49ers are going to be coming back next year with Purdy coming off a shoulder and Trey Lance coming off an injury. You like that?
Well, it sounds like Brock Purdy is going to be 100% by after the 6-month timeline, August 22nd.
Right.
Because, again, it's not like he is going to be sidelined for 6 months. He can't throw for 3 and then ramps up over the final 3 months of the 6-month timeline. And I think that's why when we're hearing the end of the year press conference from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, Shanahan can, 1, definitively say that he has 2 starting quarterbacks, and number 2, he can also say, essentially, there's no way in hell that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be on this team next year. He doesn't foresee a scenario in which that becomes the case, even though there are some people around the NFL that are floating the idea of Jimmy G returning.
But I think the people, and we're talking about, Brian Baldinger said Garoppolo's a good option. Montana thinks Garoppolo's a good option. But there's reports out there that basically Garoppolo's situation with the 49ers, his relationship with Shanahan and Lynch is soured, which I completely believe. I believe that. I don't believe, and that's why the reason I think Kyle Shanahan left no doubt that he can't see a scenario is because he knows Jimmy G doesn't want to be here and won't be here. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't want to be here. He doesn't. Even if somehow Kyle Shanahan and Lynch could say, we really need you, he's gone. I think they know that relationship is now fully severed.
I also don't think that means that Jimmy Garoppolo didn't want to play in the NFC title game.
Have.
No, I wouldn't have either, based on what his injury was and what his time to return table also was. Like, if you're telling me that, yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo was or could have done more than Brock Purdy. Well, yeah, he had a right arm. I guess he could have stood back there and thrown a football because Brock Purdy couldn't. He had a torn UCL. But if the risk of going into that game, he just saw what happened to Brock Purdy. He also saw what just happened to Josh Johnson, and he's had a history of injuries going up against a Philadelphia front that just took out two of your quarterbacks. Why would I want to go into that game and hurt myself further heading into a free agency year when I got a chance to finally recoup on what I thought I was going to get last year but didn't? Whether it's your fault because you didn't get the surgery, that's fine. But now he's got a chance to go out and an opportunity to get a starting job somewhere else, get multiple years. I'm not going to sacrifice that, especially if there's a large chance that you're not healthy anyways. Like, he's doing himself damage by playing in that game as a shell of himself. And also my question would be, like, what does Jimmy Garoppolo owe the 49ers?
Well, I would say, honestly, he owes him play. He owes him his play if he's healthy.
If he was healthy, yes.
Right. But I mean, the question would be, since Kyle Shanahan's never kept the third emergency quarterback on the active roster, he wasn't going to do it for Garoppolo 1 week out of the year. So the only way Garoppolo is activated, to me, is if he's more mobile than Josh Johnson, which he probably wasn't. I'd be surprised if he was, but
he's also just not that mobile of a guy.
Right. So I don't think he was healthy enough to play. I mean, maybe they were probably hoping he would have been the backup for the Super Bowl. That I could believe. But even if he's the backup for the Super Bowl, I mean, you're right. Then he might have to be pressed into duty after not playing for more than half a year.
And yeah, optimistically, it sounds great. Yeah, you come back for the NFC Championship, or you come back if they had beaten Philadelphia out of the Super Bowl, and you hopefully win. You do whatever you got to do. But no, like, heading into this offseason, to me, there was a clear split the moment that Jimmy G even chose to return of, this is going to be my last year in San Francisco. I am going to be your backup for the 49ers. If I'm pressed into duty, I can do my job. I can help you win, hopefully win a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. And then you let me go. I'm off into the ether, and I have a chance to hopefully be the starting quarterback for another football team. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo has been a professional enough in his time in San Francisco and his time in the NFL to say that, I'm not going to call him selfish for making that decision if that ended up being the situation.
If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I say, you know what? For a few years now, I've been professional. I ain't not. He never said I'm not being professional, but I think he's been professional for 2 or 3 years, and now he's like, yeah, I'm out of there. They didn't. I just saw a quote from Kyrie Irving. He felt disrespected in Brooklyn, and people are going to snicker at that. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, does he have the right to feel a little disrespected here in San Francisco, either by the organization or the fans?
Yes, I think so. I mean, look, he hasn't been your Mahomes or your Brady or your Rodgers, but you've been to 2 NFC title games. I know that 3. I mean, he was responsible in a way for helping you get to this past one because he took the baton from Trey Lance when he went down and helped you get some wins. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not a perfect quarterback, not a perfect human being, but like, if that's, I don't know what else you want from him at this point, aside being a better player.
Right.
That's really everyone's quarrel with Jimmy Garoppolo in the first place. It's not how he acts off the field. He's never thrown a teammate under the bus. He's never talked bad about Trey Lance publicly. He's never gone after Kyle Shanahan in the front office for, whether throwing up the peace sign last year or this year saying there's no scenario where he's coming back. We haven't heard from Jimmy Garoppolo. We probably won't until whatever the team he signs with next. Jimmy Garoppolo his only fault is not being a Super Bowl caliber winning quarterback. And honestly, that's 95% of quarterbacks.
Hell yeah.
Exactly. 925. I'm not even a San Francisco fan, but how can Purdy not be the starter? He won basically every game and looked great doing it. You're overthinking it, Steiny. Maybe I am. But I do think the way Kyle Shanahan is going to play it is saying we're going to go into camp. Remember, I mean, they went after Trey Lance. They saw something in Trey Lance that they really liked. Shanahan most specifically. So while I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm probably overthinking it, but I do think that Shanahan will say Brock Purdy's our number one heading into camp. But like any quarterback, he could be beaten out. Hell, Tom Brady could be beaten out if somebody had a better training camp. I mean, obviously I'm exaggerating, but it's an easy thing for a coach to say.
No, I think you're right. Look, if Brock Purdy comes back from the elbow injury and isn't the same quarterback or can't make the throws that he could before, I don't expect that to happen, but you're right. Yes, there could be a scenario where Kyle Shanahan isn't comfortable with what the new version of Brock Purdy is immediately and saying, well, we also got, like you said, another starting quarterback in Trey Lance.